Moedin M'Simcha Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Pesachim. We are up to Perek Zayin Mishnah Gimel. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat Neria ben Svedlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden. Amen. The commentaries explain, although no water may be used in the roasting of the Pesach, a small amount of oil or fruit juice may be smeared on it, like we learned earlier in chapter 2, Mishnah 8. This Mishnah discusses the law if certain types of oils are used. Sacho b'shemen teruma. If a person smears a Pesach with oil that is teruma, now teruma is the portion separated from produce grown in Eretz Yisrael and given to a Kohen. It may be eaten only by a Kohen and the members of his household. The Mishnah says, Im chavurat kohanim yochlu. Then if a group of Kohanim is registered for that Pesach, they may eat it, since Kohanim may eat teruma. In Israel, if it was a group of Israelim who may not eat teruma, the law is as follows. Im chayu yidichenu. If the Pesach is still raw, he should rinse it off. Raw meat does not absorb oil, and rinsing the meat will remove the oil on its surface. Vim tzaliyu yiklof et achitzon. However, if he smeared the oil on the meat after it was already roasted, he should peel off the outer layer of meat, because roasted meat is absorbent, and the outer layer of the meat absorbed the oil. However, Tosfot on page 76a explain, if it was roasted while the oil was on it, the oil would penetrate more deeply into the meat, and the whole piece of meat would become disqualified. And the Mishnah continues, Sacho b'shemen shel maaser sheni. If he smeared it with oil that is maaser sheni, now maaser sheni, second tithe, is one of the portions that must be separated from produce of Eretz Yisrael. It must be eaten in Yerushalayim. If the owner lives far from Yerushalayim and is unable to bring the produce there, he exchanges it for money, which he takes to Yerushalayim and uses to buy food eaten there. The Mishnah says, Lo ya'asenu damim al bnei chabura. He may not charge the value of the oil to the people in the group. Literally, he may not make it into money. She'en podin maaser sheni b'Yerushalayim, because we may not redeem, meaning sell, maaser sheni in Yerushalayim. Now, although maaser sheni may be redeemed for money to take to Yerushalayim, it may not be redeemed for money or sold once it is in Yerushalayim. Since the Pesach must be roasted and eaten in Yerushalayim, one may not charge the people for the value of the maaser sheni oil, because that is in effect selling the oil. And that is the end of Mishnah Gimel. The next 6 Mishnah, beginning with Mishnah Daled, discuss the subject of Tumah as it relates to the Pesach offering. As a rule, no offering may be brought or eaten by people who are tameh, impure. Therefore, a person who is tameh, impure on Erev Pesach may not bring the Pesach. However, he is given a second opportunity to bring it on the 14th of Iyar, what we call Pesach Sheni, as we will B'ezrat Hashem B'li Neder see in Mishnah 6. However, in the event that most of the Jewish people, or all, as well as however, in the event that most of the Jewish people, or all the Kohanim, are tameh from a corpse, an exception is made, and the Pesach, as well as many communal offerings, may nevertheless be brought. This Mishnah lists some communal offerings to which this law applies, and states how they differ from the Pesach. The following 5 things may be brought in a state of impurity, when most people are tameh from a corpse, but they are not eaten in a state of tumah. Meaning, even when they are brought in tumah, their meat may not be eaten in tumah. Rather, after their service is completed, their meat is burned, which is what must be done to offerings that become tameh, as the Rambam writes in Echot Biyat HaMikdash, chapter 4, Halakha 11. So the Mishnah says, HaOmer, the Omer offering of the 16th day of Nisan. Now the Omer is a communal mincha offering that consists of an Omer, a measure equal to 43 1/5 eggs of barley flour, that is brought on the 16th of Nisan, the second day of Pesach. And this permits the grain from the new crop of that year to be eaten, what we call chadash, it may be eaten, as the Torah says in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 23, Psukim 9 through 14. Now, this is one of the 5 things that can be brought in a state of Tumah, but not eaten in a state of Tumah. Ushtei lechem, the 2 loaves that are brought on Shavuot. Now, 2 loaves of bread made from wheat flour are brought on Shavuot, along with 2 sheep as shelamim offerings and several other offerings. The loaves are not brought to the altar, but are waved together with the sheep and are then eaten by the Kohanim, as the Torah says in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 23, Psukim 16 through 20. When they are brought in Tumah, the loaves are waved but are not eaten. V'lechem hapanim, the lechem hapanim that are placed in the sanctuary every Shabbat. Now, every Shabbat, the commentaries say, 12 loaves known as lechem panim, the panim breads, are placed on the shulchan, on the table in the temple sanctuary, along with 2 spoons of levonah, the frankincense. They remain on the table until the next Shabbat, when 12 fresh loaves and 2 new spoonfuls of levonah are placed on the table. The old levonah is burnt on the altar, and the old loaves, which miraculously remained fresh, are eaten by the Kohanim, as the Torah says in Sefer Vayikra, chapter 24, Pesukim 5-9. If they are brought in Tumah, when fresh loaves and levonah are placed on the table, the old levonah is burnt on the altar, but the old loaves may not be eaten. V'zivchei shalmei tzibur, the communal shalamim offerings that are brought on Shavuot. The same applies to the communal chatat offerings that are brought on the festivals. Usirei Rashi Chodeshim, and the goats that are brought as a chatat offering on Rosh Chodesh. Although these offerings may be brought in a state of impurity, they may not be eaten. Now, although parts of these offerings are usually eaten, the dispensation to bring the offering in a state of tumah allows us only to fulfill the obligation of bringing the offering, which is accomplished when his blood is thrown on the altar. Eating the meat of the offering, though it's a mitzvah, is not essential to the validity of the offering and does not override the laws of tumah. And in fact, all communal offerings that must be brought at a designated time, like the daily Tamid offerings and the Musaf offerings for Shabbat and Yom Tov, they may be brought in Tumah. Most of the people or Kohanim are Tamed. The Mishnah lists these 5 things because these are the only communal offerings that are eaten, and the Mishnah wishes to contrast them with the Pesach. Now the Mishnah contrasts these offerings with the Pesach. A Pesach sheba b'tumah ne'echal b'tumah. However, a Pesach that is brought in a state of tumah may also be eaten in a state of tumah. Shelo ba mitchilato lelo achila, because it is brought in the first place only to be eaten, since the main purpose of the Pesach is not to atone, but to be eaten on the first night of Pesach. If it must be brought in tumah when most people are tameh from a corpse, it may also be eaten. Now, when teaching the laws of Pesach, when teaching the laws of the Pesach offering, the Torah states in Sefer Shemot, chapter 12, pasuk 4, everyone according to what he eats, which the Rav says implies that the Pesach is brought for the purpose of being eaten. Therefore, when the Torah allowed the Pesach to be brought in a state of Tumah, its intention was that the Pesach be eaten in that state as well. And that is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody Shavim Moed Sameach. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.